The Hippy Dippy Weatherman had a name. Ed Sleet. He delivered weather forecasts from the wild blue yonder, reporting on a weather system described as large and in charge, advising listeners that tonight's forecast was dark, continued dark, with widely scattered light toward morning. He was absurd, warm, and impeccably timed. He made George Carlin a household name. Then Carlin decided never to perform him again. The decision was not sudden. It had been accumulating for years. But the morning he woke up and understood that Ed Sleet was finished was the morning the career he was actually going to have became possible. Understanding what that cost requires understanding what Ed Sleet gave him first. The character had emerged in the early 1960 seconds, developed through the radio work and the early club performances, and the process of a young comedian figuring out what his voice was. Carlin had a natural gift for character work, for inhabiting a persona with enough specificity that the character felt like a person rather than a device, while remaining loose enough that the comedian's intelligence was visible through the performance. Ed Sleet had both qualities. He was specific enough to be funny on his own terms, and transparent enough that the audience could see Carlin behind him, managing the absurdity with the precision of someone who understood exactly what he was doing. The Tonight Show appearances built the character's national profile. Carson liked the bit. The audiences liked the bit. It worked in the specific way that well-crafted character comedy works, reliably, cleanly, in a way that could be adjusted slightly for different audiences without losing its essential quality. Ed Sleet was repeatable. This was valuable. For a working comedian in the 1960 seconds, a repeatable bit that worked on national television was a career asset of the first order. He became known for it. Not exclusively. He had other material, other characters, other bits that worked. But Ed Sleet was the thing that people recognized when they heard his name. The Hippy Dippy Weatherman, George Carlin. The association was nearly automatic. When other comedians spoke about him in the early 1960 seconds, this was usually the reference. When television producers thought of booking him, this was usually what they were booking. He was, in the specific sense that the entertainment industry uses the word, the character. The problem with being the character is that you can become the character. The audience comes expecting the character. The bookers book the character. The industry builds its relationship with you around the character. And over time, the character can become a cage, not a hostile one, not one that anyone else constructed with malicious intent, but a cage nonetheless. A structure that was built to contain something manageable and that gradually becomes the definition of what is possible. Carlin noticed this happening. He noticed it the way he noticed most things. Slowly at first, then with increasing specificity and increasing discomfort. The set lists that worked were the set lists that included Ed Sleet. The audiences that were most reliably satisfied were the audiences that got the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. The version of himself that the entertainment industry most consistently rewarded was the version that performed the character. And simultaneously, somewhere else in his thinking, the observations that had nothing to do with Ed Sleet were becoming more interesting. The things he was noticing about language and power and the specific American talent for comfortable evasion were demanding a different form of address. One that could not accommodate a character comedian's logic, one that required him to stand on stage as himself and say what he thought, without the protective layer of a persona between him and the audience. The transition was not clean. It is rarely clean when a performer decides to move away from something that works toward something that might work but might not. There is a financial dimension to the calculation, the reliable income of a character that audiences keep paying to see, and a professional dimension, the industry's preference for the version of you that it already knows how to sell, and a personal dimension that is harder to name but more decisive than either of the others. He had arrived at the point where performing Al Sleet felt dishonest. Not untrue in the sense that the character was bad. The character was good, and the craft that had created it was real. Dishonest in the sense that it was a performance in the place of a presence, a managed version of himself in the place of the actual version. He stopped. He did not announce the retirement of the character, did not make a public statement, did not give an interview in which he explained his reasoning. He simply stopped including Al Sleet in his sets. The character that had made him nationally known ceased to appear in his work. The audiences who came expecting it were offered something else, the beginning of what he was actually becoming. What he was becoming was more dangerous than Al Sleet. Not dangerous in the sense of legal risk, though that was coming, but dangerous in the sense of requiring the audience to be fully present. The character comedy allowed the audience to receive the entertainment at a slight remove. The performer was doing something. The audience was watching the thing being done. The new work did not permit that remove. It addressed the audience directly, as people who had come to hear something true, and it held them accountable for what they heard. Some of the audiences who had come for Al Sleet were not sure at first what to make of the new work. They had paid to see the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. They were getting something more demanding. Most of them stayed. A significant portion of them found, over time, that the more demanding thing was also more rewarding. The character had made them comfortable. The new work made them think. The character work did not disappear entirely from his repertoire. He remained a gifted character comedian for the rest of his life, and traces of that gift are visible in how he inhabited different registers of address within a single performance. But Al Sleet, as a performed entity, as a regular presence in his sets, was finished by the early 970 seconds. The character had served its purpose. The purpose was complete. The people who grew up watching Al Sleet on The Tonight Show in the 960 seconds, and who later encountered the Carlin of the 970 seconds and 980 seconds and 990 seconds, sometimes struggled to connect the two versions. The gap between them is real. The Hippy Dippy Weatherman and the man who performed Jammin' in New York are not obviously products of the same career. They are products of the same person, the same intelligence, the same precision, the same commitment to finding exactly the right word for the thing he was trying to say. But they are directed at entirely different projects. The decision to let the character go was the decision to pursue the project, not the safe project, the actual one. Al Sleet delivered his last forecast sometime in the early 970 seconds. The record of exactly when and where is not precise. What is precise is what came after. 3 decades of work that the world is still watching. The forecast for George Carlin, as it turned out, was continued dark, with widely scattered light, toward morning.